So it's Friday, and normally on Friday around this time, I would be getting ready to go to see Pastor Hosh. And like about a month ago, Pastor Hosh asked, what has God done in 2023 that surprised you? And not only that, even my pastor had preached earlier this year that be ready for a testimony where God surprised you. And so it's been a consistent theme. And then it came my turn. It's like, Tony, and back to a prayer meeting, Pastor Hosh asked, hey, what has God done to surprise you in 2023? And it was my turn to answer. And honestly, prior to that, I usually give like a mini sermon, or I try and take 5 minutes and share what's in my heart. But they said, hey, what has God done to surprise you? And I'm squirming even now to answer, because when it was my turn to answer, I said, I don't want surprises. I don't know how to tell you this, but I know, Pastor, I'd rather not have a surprise, because the surprises in my life, I think, are traumatic. In fact, when I look at my calendar and I look back in my life, I mark my calendar by trauma. And and then I told him, one trauma, and gave the testimony. And I'm even squirming now. And I had felt after that it was about next time I go to give another testimony. And because my surprise will be something like along the lines of, it's in the middle of November, and I don't even want to talk about it. Yeah, I'm squirming even now. But it's just, my surprises are heartbreaking. My surprises are that I can think of. It's like, hey, heartbreak, and I'll say November 2015. Sometime that October, I had hurt myself playing basketball, and then I was going through financial attack left and right. It's one thing and after another, and then so my surprise in November 15, after 9 months, was just complete heartbreak. And I think I talked about it that night a little bit more in detail. I don't want to share that much. I'm just going to share what I'm going to share. But getting up every morning, my team still depends on me to be uplifting. My team still depends on me to lead. I still expect Tony to get up and share his heart and make a difference in people's lives. It was like, I still expect all these things from me. And so I get up, and it's the middle of the holiday. So around that time, November 15th to 2015, I'm just going through the ringer. And that's the surprise. Is I got to get up every day. And at the end of each and every day, my body's completely exhausted, and I'm emotionally drained, and I fall apart, and I drive home. Surprises for me are in 2020, waking up in October and finding a loved one in a pool of their own blood, and calling the paramedics, and with one hand putting pressure on exit wounds, and the other hand holding their hands and speaking life into them and saying, hey, we're going to make it through this. We are survivors. We're fighters. And then calling my boss and saying, hey, I need you to switch me to a closing shift today, because I'm still going to pull my weight. And then go into work and be just doing the same thing that I do each and every day. Surprises to me are waking up after my 15th birthday and looking out the window and seeing that my dad hasn't come home from his night of partying, and shaking my fist angry at him, saying, I told you wouldn't come back. He said, I'll come back tonight. And I told him, no, you won't. You always say that, and you don't. Surprises to me are waking up the next day and shaking my head and saying, you're not coming back. You didn't come back, and I knew you wouldn't. And then never seeing him again. And then waking up day after day. A couple years go by, and surprises are waking up and dreaming of him. Dreams so real, I don't know that I'm dreaming until I wake up and find a world that he doesn't exist in. I'm thinking, I want to honor my dad. He was charismatic and funny, and if I can make other people smile the way my dad would, I would honor his memory. Surprises are waking up each and every day after dreaming about him and living in this world where his great light doesn't shine anymore. So how has God surprised you in 2023? And I'm like, pump the brakes, God. I'm happy with no news. No news is good news to me. I'd rather not have surprises. I'd rather have the norm. There's enough adversity on a regular. There's enough adversity in the leadership role. There's enough adversity on the regular. Just me and my good buddy talk about it. Where other people complain, we're like, you see that person complaining about that? That's normal. This person's all like, oh, this is so hard. The job is so hard. And I'm like, bro, that's normal. Like, we can just send them to where you're at, and they were really, if they think they're... I'll digress because I like to preach. And there's a passage in Jeremiah where Jeremiah complains to God. Jeremiah does what God tells him to do. And things don't go the way Jeremiah wanted them to go. And he starts complaining and crying to God like, I told these people what you told me to tell him, and he expected them to change and everything to move and all these great things to happen, and it didn't happen like that. In fact, the people ran him out of town. And so he's complaining to God, and God responds to him by saying, if you run with the footmen and they wearied you, how will you contend with horses? If in the land of peace you struggled, how are you going to do at the flooding of the Jordan? In other words, you ain't seen nothing yet. If you're crying for this little thing, just wait till the real challenge shows up. And that's how me and my buddy feel about some of these people at work that, they tend to complain about what me and him would think, hey, that's a Tuesday. Well, your whole month of adversity is just a regular day at work. I mean, let me put you in another location where you really have to, you'll thank God that you're at the location you're at, struggling with the struggle you're struggling, right? But at the same time, I do try and be understanding that each person is at a different level, and we struggle. Storm is a storm regardless. Adversity is still adversity. I can't remember why I digressed to that. Lord, I'm like, Lord, no news is good news. What has God, back to Hash's question, what has God surprised you with in 2023? And it made me cry. And I didn't want to, I've been debating, how much do I tell? How much do I not tell? I don't want to air dirty laundry. But I will say this, I feel like you won't really fully understand all of it unless you know the full context. And I will just say that it meant a lot to me to see my mom earlier this month with her father. It meant a lot to me. She grew up and she was always just self-conscious about her nose. And when I think about it, my father was, my understanding, and not from him, but from other people telling me, was he cleared his whole calendar to talk to my mom because he thought she was just so beautiful to his sight. When he first laid eyes on her, he stopped talking to every woman that he was talking to, and he made it a point that he was going to talk to my mother. She was just so beautiful to his sight. And to her, she struggled with her nose. She said her nose, she never really liked her nose. You know, it's just this big hook. And she just never really, it didn't matter what anybody told her, she never really liked her nose. And about 25 years ago, God restored broken relationships. And she got to meet her father for the first time. And I say all that so that you can understand, when she saw her father's nose, it all makes sense to her. He's got that hook nose that she always felt self-conscious about. But when she saw her father's nose, what it meant to her, that she was her daddy's child. She was daddy's girl. And this year, God had blessed me to be able to take my mother to go see her father last week. I posted it. It's been 2 weeks ago, 2 long weeks ago. And there's this picture that really just broke my heart to see it in a good way. How God surprised me this year is He blessed me to be able to take them to California, and even me to be able to spend time with my grandfather. My grandfather has the strength of his youth. And that blessed me, that in and of itself. Just seeing him move and just talk about doing things that just tire me out just talking about. Like, Grandpa, I'm tired just from hearing you talk about it. But we were out in the snow. I would say there's snow everywhere. We weren't really out in the snow, but there was snow everywhere. And there's this picture of my grandpa walking with my mom, holding her by the hand, gently making sure she didn't fall. Like he was his little girl. Like she was his little girl. And that just broke my heart. Because if you understood what that meant to my mom, if you understood what it really, really meant to her, to have her father carefully holding her, walking with her, just to be daddy's girl, just to be daddy's little girl. Man, it broke my heart. And I love that picture that I saw. I took a picture of it, of her just sitting there being daddy's girl. If you knew what it meant to her. That the years that the cankerworm took away, the struggle and the pain, that's how God surprised me this year. Well, Hash asked me a month ago, and I didn't have a good answer. I was happy with no news. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy. It doesn't take much to make me happy. When God puts that little cloud over the sun, everybody else is complaining, it's so hot, Mr. Tony. I'm like, you don't know what it is. I've been out there in the field when there's no cloud in the sky, and then God just puts that little cloud. When I'm trying to cut the grass and it's about to rain, and God holds back the rain for me, like He stopped the sun for Joshua. The little things that He does are great surprises to me. I'm grateful for each and every one of them, but they were talking about God surprising you in a big way, and I've just been overwhelmed all afternoon. I knew that if I posted a video, I would need my sunglasses, because it looks like I've been celebrating 420 all afternoon. I promise you. But that's 15 minutes, and y'all be blessed.